I want to start off by saying thank you for choosing to spend some time this afternoon with me and talking about some lessons learned from our K-12 Print Center. It's a story that we are happy to share because it's stories from others that they've shared with us to help us form our vision and ideas for our print center. I would also like to recognize two of my colleagues here along with me. This isn't a proposal I can talk about without giving credit to many other folks, and I have a couple of those folks here in the room with me today. I have Paul Ackerman with our printing services team, and Steve Davis is our Director of Budget and Business Operations with the Blue Valley School District. So thank you to Paul and Steve for both being here today. So agenda here, a couple things to talk about. We're going to talk about why we implemented Web to Print. We're going to talk about our challenges, talk about our new workflow and some of the results with those workflows. You may be either thinking about implementing a workflow, you may have a workflow that you're looking to enhance. We'll share a little bit about some of the things that we've learned and been able to accomplish. Leveraging insourcing to grow, that's an important thing, and how we stay relevant. I think all of us, if you're an implant in here or you're a commercial printer, we're all looking for ways to stay relevant, and at the end we'll wrap up with some questions. But I want to give you some results right off the bat to kind of hopefully pique your interest, and we'll get into the how, why, what some of this means as we move through the presentation. There's a lot of different ways you could look to justify a workflow. We get asked that question quite a bit. How did you justify your workflow? You can come about it from many different ways. But here's some of the results I just want to share with you. We were able to save a significant amount of staff time, and for us in education, that's very valuable to be able to save time for our staff so they could be able to take that time and repurpose it towards the core mission of the organization. So that is a valuable commodity for us. Insourcing. There's some things that we're able to insource because of our new workflow solution that we weren't able to do in-house before because either we didn't have capacity, not just a capacity from an equipment standpoint, really a capacity when you think about it from your staff resource perspective. If they're so bogged down with repetitive tasks, how much time do they have really to dedicate to bringing on new services or bringing on new solutions to offer your customer base? Dollar savings. That's the one that everybody looks for first. We obviously had some hard dollar savings, whether it be on chargebacks, whether it be on stuff that we were able to cut out, like some software licensing that we didn't have to do anymore. We'll talk about some dollar savings. And internal labor. We're going to talk about our growth and how we've been able to bring some work into our print shop and do a lot more than we've been able to do in the past. But we did that without having to add labor. And actually, in some ways, we have decreased some of our seasonal additional labor just through some efficiency. So we'll get into some of these things in a little more detail, but I want to show you right off the bat some of the outcomes that we were able to experience. Our workflow that we put in place, we had our previous workflow was very traditional. It was fill out a carbonless form, attach your hard copies, drop it in our office mail, email us a file. We had some folks that would drop off discs to us, so we really didn't have a very good way of getting stuff to us quickly to be able to turn it around. What we found is that when we put our new workflow in place, we were able to shift a large percentage of work that was being done on multifunction devices to our print center. So we went from about 25% of our black and white impressions being produced in our print center up to about 50% of our black and white impressions being produced in our print center. So we really impacted what I call the mid-tier jobs that were being produced in our buildings, and we were able to move a lot of those to our print shop. We had to be fast and efficient for our customers to give our workflow a chance. That's really what they needed to know. Printing is personal. We had to be able to turn those jobs back to them very quickly in order for them to feel comfortable with giving up control and letting us produce that work for them. And to do that without additional people, we had to leverage software to be able to produce the work. So you'll hear us talk a lot about 69% of our orders delivered next day. A lot of that is possible because we've developed auto flow rules. Auto flow is a component of our workflow. It's a module within the WebCRD solution that allows us to build custom rules to look at the characteristics of that job and define where should that job be produced and take out some of the manual steps. So think about some of your pre-press steps of you just want to simply take something and impose it from 1 up to 2 up. We used to have somebody in a position that actually had to touch that job to do it. Now we have a workflow that does that for us, so that way we don't have to stop that job and it can continue on through our plan. Lights out production is something we talk about a lot, and AutoFlow plays a part in that as well. So after your last person leaves for the day, do you have a system that's set up that can continue to produce beyond when the lights go out at the end of the day? So that was important for us to help keep up with the growth. And I will say too, to our customers, when we show you some numbers on how we've grown in our print center, our culture in Blue Valley is not such that we mandate change. We educate them on what's possible, what we can do for them, the benefits for our staff, and we allow them to make a change. And they had to look at our solution and say, okay, we see value in that, to be able to, and took their own initiative to adopt it and tell others. So that's how we've grown quite a bit. Okay, so a little bit about who's Blue Valley. We're a public K-12 school district. We have about 22,000 students, about 40 buildings, so we're spread out. We've got quite a few buildings, quite a few students, over about 3,250 staff, and we're growing. We're a high achieving organization, so we have some high expectations in all the services that we deliver. I think it's helpful to know a little bit about who we are and where we're at. We're in southeast Johnson County, just outside of Kansas City. Specifics about our implant. We are what you would consider a job shop. We have a lot of digital printing equipment. We also have some offset small presses as well. We have a digital press and an iGen 3 you can see in the picture. Offers some traditional bindery, coil tape, comb, saddle stitch, perfect binding, all those common functions that you would find in a job print shop. We also do pre-sort mail metering, and we have a PDF workflow. And a PDF workflow was a big key for us in moving from the way we were doing things. We were dealing with a lot of native files and dealing with the traditional pitfalls of native files. And we moved away from that, and so our workflow tools gave tools to our customers to be able to get work to us, to get us out of that middle position of saying, hey, sorry, we didn't get your images, or we don't have that font, or and we don't deal with those things anymore. It allows us just to focus on producing, and it's made our lives a lot simpler. In terms of staffing, I think it's good to have that background as well. We have 8 FTE, 2 seasonal folks, and 1 contractor seasonal help about 5 months out of the year. Really important, we stagger our shifts to help maximize production. So even though we have this much labor, we're getting about 16 to 17 hours of production time out of our copier equipment. And that's possible because of the staggered shifts, and then we also have the lights out printing at the end too. So we have a small crew that's producing a lot of work, and during peak times of the year, we may float some of those folks to different departments to help out. We typically have 1 person work in our copy area. With the exception of maybe at the startup or transition times of the day, we may float somebody else over to help with that transition, which I think is pretty remarkable for the volume that we're doing. Most of our pairs of hands we have on flex rolls to help out, whether it be in the bindery or help out in other capacities to get the work done on seasonally, depending on where we need it. So strategic goals. What we found is that teachers were spending about 30 to 45 minutes a week making copies. They were going down to their copy rooms, they were lining up, queuing up to make copies. It wasn't something they particularly enjoyed to do. It was just a necessity of the job. They didn't know a different way of doing it. And they were all kind of converging on the equipment during peak times of the day, before school started, during planned periods, or after school. And they would be at the copier competing with one another for that same resource, or they would be competing with folks that were using it as a printer and going file print and jumping in line in front of them. So it was taxing our solution in terms of what we had in place in our buildings. The old system cost was growing because we were producing more copies, and it was creating this need of we need more copiers, and it was something that we weren't quite sure how to sustain. So we had a really strong implant that was working hard on really producing that top tier of jobs, really doing a good job on the high quality jobs, and we were trying to figure out how can we leverage that team that is doing a really good job, has good customer service skills, is really producing quality work to do more, to help out and help with our strategic core mission of unprecedented academic success and unparalleled personal growth for every student. So trying to take print and make it personal, because that's what our organization was doing. Our organization was trying to take education and making it personal for the students. So how could we as a print shop support that core mission of our school district? And that's really what we wrapped our minds around, and we looked at this workflow to say, okay, we're not in the classroom teaching students, but we can put a solution in place to help those that are be more effective at what they do by freeing up their time and giving them tools to be able to get print that is more personalized to what it is that they're trying to teach in the classrooms. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Our shop, the way we were doing it was at or near capacity because we were manually re-entering orders, we were handling pre-press on jobs, and it was pretty taxing for the way that we were doing things. Our minimum turnaround was about 3 to 4 days, and we were just pretty much about tapped out. So we had to make a choice of, do we continue to put more people at a process just to do it the way we've always done it, or do we step back and look at a different way of doing it and maybe have a different workflow solution in place that would allow us to utilize those same people but get even greater production out of them. So as a way to help manage the growth that we were faced with in terms of looking at our workflow. So we were kind of at a crossroads of what to do with our labor as a result of the work we were looking at accomplishing. Some other workflow challenges. We had bottlenecks in scanning in hard copies. We had business cards that were being sent out. Proofs, we didn't often create proofs on jobs. We just simply didn't have a great means to do that unless it was a really large job. And offset capacity. We made some decisions on our equipment to change up to bring in a digital press to help take some offset volume off the presses so we could turn it around quicker and maybe produce smaller quantities. And then also we had to deal with some situations where we had a lack of redundancy in some skill sets. I don't know if any of you deal with that in managing your print staffs, but it was something that we really had to focus on and create some cross-training plans so that way we never could be in a situation where we have to give an answer of, sorry, we can't do that today because so-and-so is not here. You know, that's not an acceptable answer to a customer. So we had to look at all the things that we did and figure out how do we produce a job no matter who's here. So new workflow focuses. Probably one of the overarching themes was that we wanted to allow staff, whether it be administrators, teachers, or printing production staff, to better focus on what it is that they do best while helping control cost. So for instance, if you're a print professional, we want you to focus on being a print professional and leverage those skills to get the most production out of you as possible, because that's going to deliver the maximum value back to our organization. If you're a teacher, we want to help you have the most time to focus on being a teacher, so that way you can deliver the most value back to the organization. It's really that simple, but that was our focus, and once we started thinking in that way, it helped lead us to some of the solutions we were able to put in place. We also looked at a strategy to help reduce costs, because quite honestly, costs are important, and there's some things that we were able to come up with that we'll talk about here in a moment. The workflow solution that we have in place includes several different components. We have WebCRD that we use for web-to-print job submission. We have a Sure PDF driver that we use as a print driver for any of our staff. And you can open up their native programs and go file print and submit that work to our print center. And QDirect.SCAN is for hard copy job submission. So if they have a hard copy and they want to walk up to select copiers in our buildings, scan in those originals, and submit that work to our print shop. All that work comes into our shop, and We have a solution called QDirect, which is that's where our rules-based processing, as when I mentioned AutoFlow, that's where that resides. It's looking at all those jobs that are coming in, looking at the rules that we've created, determining which machines to send that work to, which queues on those machines even to send that work to. So that way we can deliver the jobs back to the buildings as quick as we can. About 69% right now of our jobs that come in auto flow all the way through, and the first time that an operator ever touches the job is when it comes off the end of the digital copier, which previous we were touching it 4 or 5 times before it even got to that point. So that's how we were able to help manage the growth without adding staff, is we took a lot of those touch points out, so that way it's coming off at the end of the copier and being delivered back out. I want to note that we do have an existing delivery infrastructure that we leverage. We have a mail route that goes out to all of our buildings on a daily basis. So all of our production, after it's printed, it's packaged up, and it's picked up from our center and delivered out to the buildings by another department that already has an existing route in place. So types of WebCRD orders and workflows. Even within WebCRD, there's a few different ways that we receive orders. I mentioned that we have a print driver that they can print to us. We call our system print-to-print shop. But they could also go to a web browser, log in, and upload a PDF file to us. They can go to our web browser and log in and look at a repository of thousands of forms, standardized curriculum, letterhead, stationery, any kind of products like that, and order those items from us that are already kind of pre-programmed in. We have their order histories are in there as well. We started off with the goal of keeping about a 2-year order history of everything that our customers order on their login, so that way they can easily reorder from those. We've been easily able to deliver on that, and we have inventory management for forms that can trigger reorders for us. We have that built in as well. So results. So what does that mean? All right, you put in a workflow. We've had this workflow in place since 2007. This slide here is to help show a little bit of that, what's happened in Blue Valley over the last 5 to 6 years. Obviously, the number of jobs have gone up considerably. We've gone from a shop that was doing 12,491 jobs into, in 2012-13, we did 104,651 jobs. That's a 738% increase. And really, why this is a really impressive number to me is that, aside from volume, set volume aside, the time it takes to enter a job. So if you had to manually retype in all that information into some kind of accounting tracking system, I don't care if the job is for 10 copies or if it's for 10,000, it probably took you the same amount of time to type in all that information. We physically could not have delivered on this amount of work with the staff that we have without a workflow. We were about maxed out at the 12,000 job level. So we now are talking 104,000 jobs coming in. There's no way we could have re-entered all that information, scanned all those hard copy originals, and been able to deliver the work with the staff that we have. So the growth has been tremendous. The growth has come from several different ways, and we'll talk about some of those. But a lot of it had to do with the mid-tier jobs being produced on copiers in buildings. I mean, we've all seen it. We've all seen it when somebody's been in there using an office copier and they're cranking out 1,500 copies of something, and we're like, please, I have to get to a meeting. I need to make my 3 handouts that I need, and the copier's being hogged. So that's a little bit about the volume. The delivery rate, though, the 69% of the orders delivered next day. That is really, really key, and we're constantly looking for ways to increase that. Another thing I should point out here too, this growth in jobs could be skewed if our district, quadrupled or went up 10 times the number of students. That hasn't been the case. We've grown. We were a growing school district. We've grown from about 19,000 students back in 2007 to about just under 22,000 students in 12-13. So we've had some growth, but we didn't explode in growth to cause our number of jobs to jump up. So what does that look like in a day in our print shop? So our print shop had average orders this last year of 429 orders a day coming in. We had a peak day on August 12th of 1,055 orders in one day. And we continue to set new records. I think we've actually eclipsed that here in the last week or two, up to closer to 1,100 orders in one day, or 1,093. So we're just we don't know what the ceiling is with the number of orders that are coming in, but we're still delivering on the auto flow jobs back to the buildings, because we have to keep their confidence and make sure that we're delivering those back to the buildings and managing the growth. It's a good problem to have in a print shop, to have too much work, right? So we have some areas that we're challenged on in terms of keeping up with this kind of growth, but we are working on those. The auto flow, I think we've kind of hit a cap. About 69% is about as high as I think we're going to get with our equipment makeup that we have in our shop today. Software-wise, we can create a whole bunch more rules, but we're really having to look harder at, do we have the right drawer configurations on our copiers to help get us a few more rules that we could create to maybe inch that number up. And we're looking at those kind of things now, because as we continue to grow, we see the auto flow rules as the key to us being able to help manage that growth. So that way we can keep producing more with the staff we have, by looking for ways to increase that percentage. I think it's pretty amazing that the first week of school in 2013, we had about 4,500, 4,600 jobs come in. That's about the same amount of jobs that we had in 5 months in 2005 or 2006. So 1 week versus 5 months, before our new workflow solution. So that's pretty amazing, the amount of work that we're able to pump through our shop. A big focus for our shop is production savings, and one of the ways that we were able to deliver on that is 2-up printing. About 40% of all of our black and white printing is done 2-up. 90% of all of our color is done 2-up. And what that means is that if it's an 8.5 by 11, we print them 2-up, and 11 by 17, cut it in half, or finish it in another way. We did some of that prior to putting this workflow in place, but it was very manual and took us labor to be able to do it in terms of getting the file set up right. We do a lot more of it now because we put hard set rules in place to say, okay, if it's a flyer and it's this many copies on this kind of paper, we're automatically going to do it 2-up, and the workflow gets it to the right queue to automatically impose it 2-up. It helps save our customers money, and really that's what we're about. We're about passing that cost savings on to our customers to increase the value of our print shop to our buildings, to help them. It really helped our administrators feel comfortable with, not only are we freeing up time and I'm not breaking my machines in our buildings, but you're helping me save money, so I'm going to be the champion to help tell our staff about printing and why there's values to printing. It's more than time savings, it's more than keeping our copiers and our buildings healthy. It's also about saving some money for the budget, because the printing is looking out for our best interest to reduce costs. And that's one of the ways that we've been helping reduce cost. Our copier contract considers a click no matter the size. This is the way our contract work. Your contracts may be similar. So we're trying to take full advantage of that. Also, the lights out printing is only as good as you have output capacities. So we really look hard at our output capacities to see how can we maximize that. We have stackers in some of our devices. Actually, one of our devices we have multiple stackers on, so that way we can extend that lights out printing as long as we possibly can after our manned hours are over. I also have to say too that offline finishing, we've made significant investments in, and I think with the increased amount of workload that we have, that's important that we had a good infrastructure in place to be able to cut, punch, finish products, because we're all about getting things done quickly and doing a high quality job, providing good customer service, but you got to have the right tools to be able to do that. So with any workflow, I would encourage you to take steps, think about your infrastructure, think about other impacts on how you're going to produce the work, because it really does work. It really does bring the work into your print shop, so you have to be able and prepared to produce it and deliver it back. The Chargeback savings that we estimate, just on the 2-up printing, we've estimated that it's reduced about 10 million clicks a year in black and white in the 2-up printing that we're doing our printing services. So that's pretty sizable in our environment. So labor impacts. We talked about 30 minutes a day for staff. We have, I'm sorry, 30 minutes a week for staff. That's a significant amount of time saved for our staff. We also reorganized our printing services staff. We had a person that was dedicated to just doing nothing but pre-press. Well, we don't have a full-time pre-press person anymore in our print shop. We've taken those skill sets and said, okay, we have a digital press now that we need you to help run the digital press, maybe help provide some value-added services back to buildings, maybe helping them with their variable data setup, maybe helping them with templates and setting up for some new booklets that we're going to want to put out, and they don't know how to set up the booklets, so we're going to create them a template so that way they can use that template to submit work to us. We maybe need that person to help out in bindery, because maybe we have a lot of bindery to get done. So we really have a team that understands the concept of, I'm not an employee just of this specific task anymore. I'm an employee of a team, and the team is going to deploy me however I need to be deployed on a given day to accomplish the goals of the organization to get the work out. So it really took a little bit of talking about the solution and really including the staff to make them feel like they were part of something bigger that really in the end was going to value them as employees and that they were going to be able to be proud of in terms of delivering value back. Customer service, we have one person that pretty much is a bookkeeper, order entry taker, over the phone support, and really that person was taxed out with entering orders. Now that person could be a little more proactive and say, calling up customers and saying, hey, we have this job, we have a question about it, or have you thought about doing your job this way instead of that way, and it may help you save a little more money. So that person now can help out in so many different ways to give value back to the organization when they were spending all their time before just re-entering information to create job tickets and feeling pretty stressed out about that because they had piles that they could never get to the bottom of. Autoflow rules, lights out, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Contract seasonal hourly help. We were able to cut that about 47%, and one of the reasons why, the autoflow rules, even during the day when we have the shop staffed, if we turn the autoflow on, you have one staff person trying to run a series of copiers, a whole handful of copiers. It's physically impossible to run and touch all those copiers and keep them all going at 90-some% of the time if you have to touch every job on them. So to be able to turn the autoflow on and let that roll to several jobs while you're looking at the more complex jobs that maybe need some custom setup or some specialty finishing touches really allows us to be more productive with that one person than we otherwise could be. So that in turn has caused us to have to rely less on extra hours from a contract labor person because we were more productive during the day and we're able to get more work done because the copiers kept running because of having autoflow rules. Now, my boss is in the room, and I want to say that doesn't mean that we can cut our budget for seasonal help. What that means is that we just afforded ourselves some room for growth. So as we continue to grow, because we are growing, we're growing in number of students, we have new programs coming up all the day, every day. We have some capacity now to be able to breathe again. Now at some point we will hit the cap and we'll tap that out and we'll have to figure out what to do at that point. But if we didn't have the right workflow solution to give us that capacity, we would have been having this conversation years ago in terms of how we were going to get the work done. Direct cost benefits. So we used to buy licenses of for InDesign for both the Mac, the PC. We used to buy Cork Express. Used to buy all kinds of different applications because it's what our customers used, and we had to have a way to look at their files and get it to print. And we don't buy all that stuff anymore. We're really moving to a PDF workflow. We have some Adobe installs, but very few compared to what we used to because we have fewer people that need to have access to that. The increased volume has also allowed us to bulk purchase supplies in a much more efficient capacity than we ever have before, which in turn has driven down some of our cost of those supplies, which we then pass back on to our customers. So we've been able to help drive our supply costs down by getting more work to our print shop, which is value back to the organization again. Producing business cards in-house instead of outsourcing. You know, business cards was a very painful process to have to facilitate orders on because they're very problematic. You guys, if you've taken business card orders, you know, all it takes is one typo and you're reprinting a whole set of business cards pretty quick. Now, with the solution that we have in place, our customers get to typeset that business card right and have it proof on the screen right back to them. Versus we would send it off to somebody and have them type it up, proof it, send it back to us so we could pass it back to the customer, so they could pass it back to us so we could pass it back to them and tell them that they had it wrong, and that whole communication chain just took way too long. So we're able to do it now in-house for, you know, a fraction of the cost. So that's an improvement. Customers are happier because they can help see the finished product quicker. Multiple up, I mentioned the 10 million clicks saved a year. That's something we're very proud of. The last bullet here is the key bullet on this slide. So we talked about reducing cost on clicks. We talked about reducing cost on materials and supplies. We also have had a lot of growth in jobs. So our revenue has actually increased 38% in the time frame from 08 to 12-13. And that's pretty remarkable considering we've cut costs to our customers in so many ways, but we've added so much volume that our revenue still went up 38% over that period of time. So we're providing value back, but we're also seeing returns to the print center. New programs, projects. You can't stay stagnant. You have to listen to your customers. You have to talk to your customers. You have to see what kind of opportunities are out there to be done to remain to give value back to the organization. And we were struggling to find time to do that 5 years ago because we were spending so much time doing the things that weren't delivering the value back. We were spending so much time retyping the job tickets. We were spending so much time doing basic imposition and dealing with font issues. We've recaptured that time to allow us to focus on some of the higher end solutions. You know, how do we provide some coaching to our customers on the finishing capabilities that we have? How do we help educate them on our capabilities of how to do variable data printing? How do we coordinate talking to all of our schools about having us produce their planners that they hand out to the buildings and provide them the tools that they need to be able to design those and set them up and understand what our time frames are to be able to hit their delivery schedules. And it takes staff time to do those kind of projects and initiatives, and the only way you have staff time is to take out some of the redundancy to be able to have time to focus on it. One of the new programs and projects that we have is yearbooks for our elementary schools. We're going to be printing about 12 elementary school yearbooks this next year. It is a great way that we're providing some savings back to our communities. It's also helping us because it's driving up our print volumes on our color press to be able to get some better pricing on all the other color work that we do. So it's a win-win. It's helping them, it's helping us, but it takes somebody to be able to work with those parent groups to be able to talk about how do we get your files and what our capabilities are and what the costs are so they understand those things. Kind of the new horizon that we're working on right now, and it's a major emphasis, is on how we deliver curriculum. We have done a really good job in partnering with our Ed Services team and our publishers to put up, you know, several thousand PDF files that we have the rights to reproduce. And it's a really neat way for teachers to be able to go in and say, okay, I want to preview that, I like that, I want 20 of this one, 20 of that one, 20 of this one, and it's a shopping cart experience. They hit submit and the files are already in our system and we have them locked down to say, here's how we're going to produce them. We're going to produce them as a saddle stitch book and on this kind of paper, and it goes to this machine, and it's very nice. So that's kind of how we've started with curriculum, and we've taken that and really are seeing that grow into personalized curriculum. And we're excited that in the last month we have added a new module in our print shop. We call it Book Builder. It essentially gives teachers the tools to be able to take a look at those curriculum pieces. So maybe it's a workbook that they maybe used to buy the whole workbook. It's a 164-page workbook from the publisher. They really don't want the kids to have to fill out all 164 pages of this workbook. There's really maybe 3 or 4 different sections of it that are really relevant to what it is that they're teaching. So they now have the ability to go in and pick out those sections that they're interested in. And maybe they picked out some sections, but they have some handouts too that they like to marry up with it to make it more relevant to how they're going to teach the class. So they can now add their PDFs to it. And now they've kind of created their own custom handout. They can now submit that order to the print shop. So using our tool to pick the pieces that are relevant, add their pieces that are important, create their custom book to deliver that personalized learning tool. We're really excited about that. I think that's going to be it's going to create some challenges for us, I'm sure, but it's what our teachers are needing, what our education staff feels like is important to the classroom. And it's really all about the students. And that's what we're focusing on. That's what we're focused on. We want to do more to support personalized learning and stretch resources. And there's a little quote on here that was validated by some research done by the University of Missouri, Kansas City. In 2012, the district and every school in it made adequate yearly progress. We are the only district in the nation of our size to make AYP at each one of our schools for 10 consecutive years. Essentially, we're really about results, really about achievement. AYP has gone away, and we have other measurements that we're looking at now in this current year. But it doesn't change the fact that we're a data-driven school district. Your organizations may be data-driven as well, and we feel that if we put the right tools in place for our teachers, our print shop can help support a district goal and objective that is so high-reaching and far-reaching beyond what we think of that we can impact in printing, but we really can because we're helping them be successful in managing their time and costs. Yes, sir?
How do you take order from the teacher? Are you using the web to print solution, or teacher just give?
Our orders come in off of the website, and they also can come in off of the print driver that we provide them. Or the third way, we have hard copy orders can be scanned in on copiers and submitted from the copier to the print center. So those are the 3 main ways. I will say too, we have not taken the hard rule approach and say that we will no longer accept if you send in your orders through the mail. We will still take those in. We realize that there's some generational challenges, that some folks that may be close to retirement and have always done it a certain way, we're probably not going to get them to change. And so what we do, we still accommodate that, but we enter it into the system as an order on behalf of that person that sent it to us. So that way their order history is still there. We send them a nice little note saying, thank you for your order. By the way, you can log into your system and easily reorder this the next time. Here's what it's called. So that way we're kind of gently nudging and providing them some customer service about how our system works. And what we're seeing is that each year the number of orders that we receive as hard copies is going down. And I think that will continue until it's finally about gone. Talked about the partnership with our Ed Services Department and our new curriculum that's being purchased. It is true that technology is changing how content is being delivered. And you think of it in a lot of different ways. Just getting here today, any of you that flew years ago, we used to get sent in the mail our plane tickets. Well, now we log in ourselves, check ourselves in, and probably printed off your boarding pass at home and brought it with you to the airport. It just got downstreamed. A lot of that's happening too in education. We're seeing less of buying large workbooks, and we're buying the rights to files, and we're only producing the pieces of the workbook that we're actually using. We have not gotten into textbook printing. Don't know if we will or ever will. That's yet to be seen. We're not doing that today. We don't have in our environment a one-to-one relationship of technology to students. That is a very difficult thing to sustain. Some school districts and some schools have done that, and maybe they had some one-time money to be able to put in to do that, but it's, for a district as large as ours, about 22,000 students, that's a lot of technology to refresh on a regular cycle to be able to deliver. So I really think print has a place, and making it personal is going to be the key to it. But also, too, what we're trying to put some solutions in place for is for those folks that have tablets, those folks that have iPads, do they have a way to order their printing? Do they have it from that device? So maybe they are looking at a document that's very large, or maybe they want to work from home and use that document. Do they have a way, that piece of technology, do they have a way to order from our print shop the pieces that they need? It may not be something this big, it may be something this big that they need. So we're making sure that we have the tools available for that. And with the solutions that we're putting in place and with our workflow, our volume is increasing in our print center. So that's tells us we're providing the right resources to help them get what they need. The new book assembly module, talked about that a lot. If you have questions about that, feel free to ask, and I'll try to do my best of answering some of those as we get to the end of the presentation. But I think that's really the future for us. But the tool is really to give, the goal is to give the teachers the tool to do what it is that they need to do, and only produce what it is that they need for the classroom. Okay, insourcing, maximize value. You know, it's nice to be in a situation where having a workflow to give us the ability to insource jobs, be able to say yes when before it would have been very painful to say yes. We all have the customer that needs something like yesterday, and there was times where we would just drop everything and get that done. We still have to do that occasionally, but with the way how fast jobs move through our shop, we don't have to have those conversations very often because next day is the norm for almost 70% of what we do, so we're already flowing it through so fast. We look at those mid-range jobs as a way to grow, and that's really been a help for us. Working smarter, expanding our capacity to do more with lights out printing. And our staff feel like they are really part of something. They are really part of helping the organization, and it's really helped job satisfaction, that they feel like they are making a difference and that they are valued because they do a tremendous amount of work. I think it's vital for implants to reinvent themselves, to not stand still. And when you think about a workflow, you have to think about it as a living thing. It's not a build it once, we have it, good, check that off the list, we're done. It's really a tool for you to communicate. It's a tool for you to add new services. It's a tool for you to create a brand, create a perception of we are a solution provider. We are a partner with the parent organization or with your customers. And it's really, there's a lot of things that can be done with it because it's that instant communication with customers, and it's that tool that they need and that they value. Be perceptive about what your customers need. Take time to talk to your customers and ask them, are there things that we're not doing for you that we could be? What are your goals and objectives? And you might be able to look at your workflow and find a way to help them accomplish some of those goals. That's giving value back. Seek out those opportunities. Do demonstrations. This book builder tool that we're adding on, we could just plug it into our workflow and maybe throw a flyer up there and say, here it is. But really, we're not going to reach our potential and be successful with that unless we go out and talk to the customers. You go out and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this book builder thing. Will it be valuable to you? Would it help in what it is that you do? And they may ask some questions, and you may share some things, and you may be thinking that you're heading in this direction, but you're heading you veer a little bit to a different direction, but you deliver something that is very valuable that they become a champion for you on, and then tell everybody else about. And the next thing you know, what you did just really had a big organizational impact and in a positive way. And we try to make those opportunities as often as we can to talk with our customers. So pitching those ideas, listening to our customers, seeking opportunities to demonstrate, and educate our customers about cost and options. You know, as an implant, that's one of the best things that we have going for us, is that, you know, we're free consulting. You know, we're here to help them understand how to drive their costs down so that they can afford to get done everything that they need to get done. They may want to do this new project, but they don't know how they're going to afford it. So you look at maybe some other projects they're doing and say, okay, well, if you change the size of that a little bit, we can get more up on a sheet, and it's going to cost you less clicks, it's going to cost you less paper, and now we just freed up some money to help you do this. You know, that's the value of an implant. So we leverage the workflow and autoflow every chance we get, because that's how we manage growth. And those are just different ways that we try to stay relevant in Blue Valley.